Me when you do. Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. So welcome. And I see Maya just joined us as well. And this is Judy Stewart, and it is October 2nd. And this is our first Career Tuesday of the fall semester. And we are kicking it off with an amazing employer named AlphaSights. So I am going to have them just introduce who in these Hollywood square frames is from AlphaSights, and then I'll start by kicking it off and asking a couple of questions. So Riley, if you want to just introduce yourself and then the others, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm a manager on the talent acquisition team at AlphaSights and also a UConn alum. I graduated in 2016 from CLAS. I've been at AlphaSights for about a year and a half now, and I'm joined by Dan and his big smile, who's one of our VPs. So I'll pass it to you to intro.
Awesome. Judy, I love that. I love that wave. I'm trying to find that feature in here.
Well, guess what? It wasn't a wave, it was a hand raise, and I messed that up. But
Oh, the timing is perfect.
here's
But
the wave, the clapping
there
hands.
it is.
I was clapping hands for the alumni. That's what
There
I
you
was
go.
doing.
I love it. Love it. Well, really, really excited to be here and thank you for having me. As you can see, my name is Dan. I graduated from Binghamton University. It's a state school in New York. I graduated in 2017. Did a degree in economic policy analysis. So we might touch on my story just a bit, but the long short of it is, I like to say economics was a blessing and a curse. A blessing because there's so much you can do with it, but a curse because of the fact that there's so much you can do with it. So I was looking for a place where I could individually learn and gain skills and experiences early on in my career. That's how I found AlphaSights, and I've been here ever since. So that is over 6 years. 2 years in the associate role, 3 years in the manager role, and then got promoted to vice president last year. Excited to chat.
And Maya, I see that you're here. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. I'm Maya, or I go by MJ, and I'm an associate on our talent acquisition team here. I graduated from the University of North Carolina in 2022, started off here as a coordinator, now I'm an associate on the team, and excited to work with UConn this year.
Fantastic. So before we start the official questions, because AlphaSights may be a new company to some of our students, would one of you just like to kind of give an overview of what AlphaSights does and what your business model is, and then we will dive into who you hire and everything else.
I'd love for Dan to take that.
Okay.
That's completely fair. Yeah, so essentially we set up short-term consulting calls. And what that looks like is our clients, who range from private equity firms to hedge funds, corporations, consulting firms, they come to us in the beginning stages of their research as they're trying to gain a better understanding of, say, like an industry, a product, or a service. So then they come to us to go find those experts in a particular field or whatever they're looking for. So yeah, there's a lot of communication that's required, a lot of empathy, because you have to try to figure out, try to read between the lines in terms of what are they actually looking for. And then it's our job to go find those experts and connect them with our clients. So it's sort of a sales job, client service, communication is really, really important. But the bottom line is that it is fast moving because the projects typically last maybe 2 to 3 days, maybe. Typically they last like 2 to 3 hours.
Really? Wow.
They are that fast.
Fast and furious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. So what I would love to start with is, like internships or full-time jobs. Maybe Riley, you can help us with that. What's your priority and what are the skills that you're looking for?
Yeah. I would say our priority is both full-time and internship roles. We are in a unique space where we hire quite big classes for both. So I think our target for full-time is around 500 across the US this year. And for internship, probably around 200 or 250, which is really fun to bring in such big classes and bring in such a large amount of new talent. It really like constantly keeps things new and exciting here at the office. Skills, I think, like how Dan mentioned, communication is really important. Empathy is really important. Not only are you communicating with your clients regularly, but also with the experts and trying to sort of pitch AlphaSights and why it's worth their time to talk with our clients. Really being able to think on your feet, because it is quite fast paced, like he said. It's not like a consulting role where you could be on the same project for 3 years. You're going to be on a project that could be 24 hours. It could maybe be 2 weeks, but probably not. It's probably just going to be a day or two. And your clients also might change their mind halfway through the day. So you have to redirect your search and might have to tell an expert, actually, never mind, we don't want you anymore. So those things. And then also, we're really feedback heavy culture, which is an awesome thing for a first job or a first internship experience. You really hear, when you're crushing it and things are going well, but you also hear if there's things to tweak or improve on. And that's really helpful as you're trying to gain all the skills, learn all you can. And so really having that student mindset is something we're looking for as well.
So you mentioned quite a lot of summer interns and quite a lot of full-time jobs. Are they all in New York City, and are they all in the office, or are they hybrid, or how does that work?
So we have an office in New York and an office in San Francisco. So it's across both offices. New York is significantly bigger size-wise, so more of the roles are in New York, but we have a small but mighty San Francisco office. And then I forgot the second part of your question. Sorry. Oh, hybrid. It's 4 days in the office with the option to work from home on Fridays. I think what's really fun and cool about AlphaSights is that hybrid schedule, because you'll find that people love being around their team so much they'll even come in on Fridays, but there's so much energy in the office, and you can really use that to kind of like boost your performance and be excited about the work, and also means a lot of collaboration. I don't know if it might actually be helpful for Dan to talk about like a typical day.
Yeah. And I'm happy to talk about the value of being in the office too, early on in your career, at the very least. I think there have been like a ton of studies recently too. Again, it depends on like what you're looking for, what your strengths are and all of that, but there is really strong value of being around others that have maybe had 3, 4, 5 years experience in the field, so you can just learn from them. And there's only so much that can happen in the virtual world with that mentorship. There's so many like informal collisions that happen in the office. So I definitely know through like my experience that it was really helpful to be in the office. I actually used to sit next to our global COO. He was not the COO at the time, and now he's COO. And now Riley and I just hang out with him, take the subway with him, all of those pieces. And that wouldn't necessarily happen if like we weren't in the office. So I think there is like really strong value from a professional standpoint. And then in terms of what we do, there's also that added element for sure. Collaboration is really important. So it's the same piece of like turning and talking to someone. You get the particulars and nuances of that turn and talk, as opposed to like a Slack, which sometimes might come off as like a little bit cold, or like you don't necessarily understand it. So that's like the other thing. And even as I was coming into this orange box that you see here, I was leaving my team. We have an open desk set up, and the team was rolling a dice because that's their like team competition, and they were like cracking up and having so much fun. And I was like, oh, what are you guys doing? I want to join, but now I'm like a little bit too senior to join those pieces. So the bottom line for that is I just look fondly back on my like time as an associate and with my team.
That sounds great. So now the entry, somebody's put a question in the chat box, and I'll get to that in 1 second. But these entry-level jobs, would you say sales, communication, research? What's the critical skill that you're looking for?
All of the above. I think Riley mentioned a really key one though, of feedback. We definitely are a feedback-driven culture. So someone who's able to like take feedback, apply it pretty quickly. I know that learning agility is really, really important for me as I'm interviewing potential candidates, in terms of like, okay, you may not have known that thing, but can you learn it? Can you process it? Can you understand why that's not the case? And as a quick tangent, that's what drew me to AlphaSights so much, is during the interview process, I got a lot of feedback. I did not do well on my case study, but I remember saying to myself, if they gave me that much feedback to someone who isn't, producing for them or isn't even employed by them, then imagine if they do give me an offer, I know I'm going to get like a lot of resources, etc. So that's like a really key piece, is the receptivity to feedback and the willingness to like learn and actually like, put in the effort to get better. Riley, is there anything else that you would add to that?
I think that, I don't know if it adds to that, but something I was thinking about wanting to mention was knowing coming in as a summer associate that you have nearly the same role as a full-time associate, which I think is very unique to AlphaSights. Like, you're not sort of just there to do like grunt work or whatever. Like, you're actually doing the full-time role. You're getting the full experience. You're communicating with experts. And you're actually like getting to, observe a client brief and just like get the full sense, which is a pretty unique opportunity in an internship.
Yeah, it's literally the same job. My job as a VP is to plan for like capacity and how many like people I have on the team. And I do plan for interns because they're literally doing the job of our associates, just obviously in a 10-week span as opposed to a lifetime.
Got it. Okay, we have a question in the chat from Udaya. And she's asking, do you hire data analysts or data scientists?
So this role is not data driven by any means, as Dan's kind of been mentioning, the communication side. So like right now, we're typically not hiring for that. That would be like a different role outside of what we're recruiting. It could be live on our website, but the core of our recruiting goals is this associate, full-time and summer associate role. Okay,
so more of those entry level. And Udaya, are you in the graduate program as because I know we have undergraduates and sometimes graduate students. So Udaya, are you a graduate student? If you'd like
I'm a graduate student. I'm about to graduate in the month of May 2024. So I'm I'm pursuing business analytics and project management, focusing mainly on the data science concentration. So that's why I'm looking at roles like business analytics.
So I think what I heard them say is that you can look on their website, but for the purpose of this Career Tuesday, they are really looking for the entry-level sales type of research and not the data scientists, which you may find on their website. So
sure.
you can
I'll go through it.
Yeah. So Riley, do you want to kind of tell us what the interview process looks like? I know that you've been at a career fair up at Stores and you had a lot of interest up there. So walk us through what the interview process is. Are your jobs posted on Handshake? Like, how do they find out about this?
Yeah, MJ has us posted on Handshake, so you can see both our full-time and summer associate role there. As far as the interview process, you have a first round interview with someone on our recruiting team, so someone like MJ or me or another one of our associates. That's more to kind of get a sense of what you're interested in. If AlphaSights is the right fit, you get like a better understanding of what AlphaSights is as on the whole, and just so we can hear a little bit more about your experience. From there, if you move forward, you move on to interviewing with our actual client service team. So your second round interview is with a manager, and it's more of a situational based interview. So you're going through mock briefs and getting a sense of what the day-to-day looks like, as well as doing like a mock phone call so you can get a sense of what it's like to interact with an expert, just so we can get a sense of if you like what you're doing, if you would like what we do here, and also so you can, like Dan was saying, get an idea of what it's like to receive feedback on a case and kind of just experience the day-to-day. And from there, you would interview with someone like Dan, one of our senior leadership team on client service. And that's, again, more to like suss out if we're a good fit for you, if you're a good fit for us. More of that behavioral side of interviewing. I don't know if you want to add any tips or tricks, Dan.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think you explained that really well. I think to your point, Riley, that last interview for me, if you've gotten to that point, you're obviously like a pretty impressive candidate, right? So I really try to see, okay, is this actually the best fit for you and like what you want early on in your career? Because it definitely does require a certain want or a certain need in terms of like what you're looking for in your career. So that's what I sort of use that last round for. So my advice to any candidate, but not just interviewing at AlphaSights, but anywhere, is have a really strong sense of what you are looking for. You don't have to have this 20-page document of here's the next 15 to 20 years of my professional journey, but do have a really strong sense of what you're looking for, maybe 2 or 3 years out of college and where you want to be and how this specific job gets you to that point. Because then that comes across as really impressive to me, and then I can sort of decipher out from there if AlphaSights in the associate role is that best step for you.
So since you probably have a lot of applicants, Riley or Maya, can you tell us like what would make you pay attention to a resume more than one resume more than another? And then when you do the interviews, are they virtual or are they a phone call first?
Yeah. I might throw this to MJ, but also I think like key things for me are leadership experience. Like it's great if you're involved on campus, but are you taking a leadership position in that club or in that extracurricular or on that team? Another thing is like any part-time, full-time, or internship experience. I kind of want to see that you're using your time in a constructive way and purposefully. And if not, like if you can talk me through why, that's also fine. But just really being able to talk about why your time is being spent the way it is. I think we find that, business majors are great, but also like we have really successful psych majors, really successful political science majors, STEM majors. It's really sort of because it's more in the soft skills side and like communication and what we've been talking about. Anybody can be successful. It's really like what you bring to the table and how you interact and like your drive and your hunger. That's really what we're looking for. And we want you to be able to talk through in an interview. I'd be curious if the other two want to add anything before we talk about the interview types.
MJ, you got anything? No? Yeah, I don't have anything too new either. Exactly to Riley's point, I think maybe to expand on it of like why leadership is particularly important because a lot of stories come from that. And then once you have the stories and you can leverage those stories to chat about, I learned X, Y, and Z thing. And of course, you learn a lot in the classroom, right? But maybe like a third derivative in calculus isn't as applicable to a final round interview about for a job that is like very communication based. So that's, I think, the why behind that is particularly impressive. I know for me, when I'm looking through resumes and I see like those leadership experiences, and then the last thing on that is I think it also does showcase a certain level of like proactivity of like, oh, I see this club that isn't on my campus and I like created it. That's definitely like really interesting for me because we do have sort of like a startup culture and a bottom up culture. So I'd want that kind of, employee on my team.
Thanks. And the first round is a phone interview, and then the next two rounds are video interviews.
Okay, great, wonderful. So for those of you who are on this call, one of the things that we suggest is that you do put your videos on. Everything for us in the Career Center is practice. So we like if your videos are on, we like to make sure that you're well lit and that your background is appropriate. So, we're almost at the end today, but just a reminder, if you join us again, everything is a teaching moment. So, but all good. So we did have one question before about data science, and they have answered that. Is there anything else that anybody would like to raise their hand about, ask the question directly, put in the chat bar? Anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to ask? Yes, go for it.
So I just had a question. I know you mentioned like what a day-to-day looks like, and I know you guys mentioned the projects. So kind of, could you walk me through a day-to-day?
Yeah,
Great
right.
question.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
tackle this one. I'll say Kirsten. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll say, Kirsten, it definitely does change on a day-by-day basis. Like I mentioned earlier, the agility is really important, but that's honestly what like really excited me about the role was that I knew every single day was going to be different, so I was never going to get bored. But what a typical day might look like is at 8:45 or 8:30, depending on your team, we meet as a team to chat through what we're going to be focusing in on for that day. Like Riley mentioned, in 2 hours, our client might message us and say, actually, like pencils down here, we're not looking at that. Or like, here's a quick pivot, which is the more common situation. But either way, it's still good to have a game plan with your managers about here's what I'm doing for the next like 5 hours. And I love those meetings because I'm not a morning person. And it forces me to be a morning person to like get into the office, be ready to like chat about what we did the previous day, all of that. We even do fun traditions of like On Wednesdays, we do trivia where someone brings a trivia question and we all have to try to guess it. So it's just like a really nice, fun, like team building time. So then throughout the morning, you'll be like calling experts, doing research, responding to clients if you're a second year associate, hopping in on client briefs, which is a very like, client facing activity. And then in the afternoon around 3:30, 4 o'clock is when we have our afternoon boards. So now it's like, okay, here's what I did the whole day and here's what I have to do to get the heck out of here, which is also a really nice component because sometimes managers would say, do you think that's actually realistic that you can do that in the next hour and a half? Let's chat through like the top priority things. Because what's really interesting about the shop is that theoretically you could be working 24/7 if you wanted to. So it really is on you to like have a really important like work-life balance and make sure that you are able to prioritize certain projects and just leave it for the next day. So I don't know if that's like as detailed as you would hope. I can go so much further in. But that's like the typical cadence. And again, it requires like a lot of calling, quick research, etc. But this is not like a deep research role.
That was perfect. Thank you. I was just kind of getting like, it's nice to get a sense, and I like that you guys kind of meet as a team. That's great to hear. And then I just had one more quick question.
Of course.
So kind of like about your retention rate. I know there's a big pipeline sometimes in certain companies from like internship to a full-time position. I don't know if you could tell me a bit about that as well.
Yeah. Riley, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I would say Dan had 100% conversion rate on bringing back his interns this year.
100%.
So, yeah, I think like one thing we really value is bringing back our interns to full-time roles. They're able to hit the desk faster as a full-time role and like really be a role model and a leader in the incoming class. So we do pretty well with our, I don't remember what the overall conversion rate this year was for our interns, but like one of the BUs I work with had 13 or 14 people signed to come back. So I think, you know, what's good about the internship role is you do get, like, as we've been saying, a sense of the full-time role. So you'll know, like, this is what I want to do and I want to come back and do it. Or you're going to know, like, objectively, not for me. Appreciated my experience, but I don't want to take the offer. So I think it's a really, as an intern, it's a good opportunity to like actually get a sense of what's next for you post-grad.
Yeah. And just to like piggyback off of that, like the goal is that like 10-week sort of dance of like, is this good for me? Do I want to be here from your end as like the intern, but then also us of like, okay, would she be like a long-term fit for us in terms of like, does she like the role? Is she good at it? All that stuff. So that's the purpose of the internship program, which again, I think is like quite unique as opposed to it just being like another checkbox. Like I know I certainly had internships where I was doing like a lot of the typical like office administration work. I remember one internship that I had, I learned so much about scanners. It was awesome, but not necessarily like applicable to this job. And that's what's unique about the AlphaSights internship for sure.
And you know, Kirsten, the beauty of an internship, to their point, is that you learn as much about what you like as about what you don't like, you know, which was Dan's story about the scanner. It's not that, I'm sure that he learned some things that summer, but he also learned that that might not be the right environment for him. So that's what's nice about that 10-week dance, as he calls it. We are hitting the end of our time together, but we are open to a couple of more questions if anybody. Yes, William, go for it.
Hi, first of all, I just wanted to say I apologize for the commotion in the background. I am at my part-time job in the mailroom right now, so I'm just trying to juggle both. But I was very interested to come here today and hear what AlphaSights kind of has to say. But my question would be, what would you say is the most challenging or a few challenges that entry-level employees face?
In general or at AlphaSights or both?
Yeah, just like getting used to the job.
Yeah. I know for me, it was just the pure amount of like consistent hours that I have to work. And I think that's going to be at any job.
Yeah.
I mentioned it earlier, I'm not a morning person. So I would complain if I had like a 10:30 class on like a Friday. I'd be like, wow, this is the worst. And now all of a sudden, you know, I'm working from 8:30 to 6 o'clock Monday through Friday. So that's one piece of like, that's just general advice that I definitely have for you guys of like, get into your best practices of like, what does your routine look like? When do you have the most energy, etc. When do you like your first cup of coffee? When do you like going to bed? All of those things. I know that sounds small, but again, AlphaSights or not, that's going to like set you up for success. And that's why I feel like I definitely feel more energized now, 6 years in to working, because I understand those pieces. And I probably even work more now than I did like five years ago, but I just feel like a better work-life balance. So that's just like piece of advice I would have from early career. And I know it sounds simple, but I wish someone told me that when I was a senior.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
That is very consistent, Dan, with what we hear a lot. You know, students in their first internship is like, how do I stay awake for 7 hours a day?
It's tough. It is.
We still say that, Judy.
Yes, exactly. How do I write an email? You
Right.
know, things like that. So those are the soft skills that, you know, you can't, you know, you may be your first summer working and living in New York City, but you can't go out partying if you have to be at your desk at 8:30 every day.
That's right.
So, and it's all very exciting, William, but it is a different skill set. And that's why we really encourage internships, because you do really learn a lot. So,
Yeah,
great question.
Completely agree.
Okay, my friends, if no other questions, I did write down for the students, write down the names of the presenters, connect with them on LinkedIn or on their career website or something. But there's nothing more critical, more important than telling them that you joined us on this Career Tuesday. And, you know, thank you for asking questions, Kirsten and somebody who left before, and William. We really appreciate that. And Riley, MJ, and Dan, thank you very much. I hope you get a great talent line from UConn, and this will be recorded, so you're going to have a lot more people watching after. Okay? So thanks again, and we will see you soon. Okay?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Go
Bye.
Huskies. Bye, guys.